For the next hour, we want to talk about bribery in this country. Not just corruption. No corruption, we talk about corruption, you think, big procurement, bribery, which is where citizens interact with corruption on a one-on-one, on a daily basis. Okay? The question we asked you, City, is have you recently been asked for a bribe?
To be asked for a bribe, you need to find me. Okay? Yes. Or I need to be doing something where I can easily be found. Well, I don't drive to work, so you're not going to find me. And if you stop the Uber I'm in, you're going to be talking to the Uber driver. But Uber drivers tend to be fairly careful. The point is this. I will be at a point where bribery is an issue if it's something that I have allowed to have accommodated in my life over time. It won't be that, say, I am stopped and I'm already thinking of a bribe. It is something I must have been doing.
Okay.
Yes.
That's one way of thinking, where you think that you're asked for a bribe because you've committed an offense, or you're in a position where you're being accused of having committed an offense. However, you could be asked for a bribe because you're seeking a service.
Yes, there is that detail.
Right.
But I have an advantage. Those of us who are on radio like we are, and people who watch us on radio, people get to know who you are. So people are more likely to want to take a selfie with you than they're likely to ask you for a bribe. Okay? So I am actually the wrong person to ask that question because I am not going to be treated like an ordinary citizen. But you can see somebody saying, after you have received the service, this I have been told. Lakini surely hata inaiba idiote wazee chai. Yes. That I have been told.
You don't consider that a bribe?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Because a bribe is an inducement. I'm giving you money so that you can do something for me. If you've already done it for me, what may be inappropriate is, why are you asking me to thank you? I should decide that I want to thank you. So if you ask me to thank you, then you are essentially soliciting. So it could comprise what constitutes a bribe. Yes.
Okay.
So what I normally do though, I walk with sweets in my pocket. Literally.
Yeah.
And they're in my bag. I will even demonstrate.
So mtu anasikia baridi unampatia peremende.
Unafanya hivi bro. Kwanza sukari kio kwa mwili.
I'm curious with sweet.
Hutamini. Utasikia joto kwa mwili.
I want to
He will give you.
He wants for two bob.
Our guest for this conversation, as City is fetching some sweets from his bag.
Expensive ones.
Nerima Wako-Ojiwa is the executive director of Siasa Place.
Yeah.
And Okoth Opondo is a civic educator. City,
imagine they are not cheap sweets, by the way.
Of course.
Caramel.
Hey, my friend. Proper sweets.
You're already being bribed.
Thank you.
I guess to demonstrate now, determine, am I bribing you?
Nerima. Oh, these are mine.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. That's yours.
You're clearly not accustomed to being bribed.
Hi.
We are.
Add one to Nerima so that it's 3-3.
Is it?
Equity. I appreciate that.
Don't shake a sweet.
So essentially, what I'm trying to demonstrate here is, do these constitute a bribe?
Well, if you have been asked for a bribe and you give it, then it constitutes for a bribe. You will welcome our guests with the day's proverb.
That I will.
And then they'll give us their perspective when it comes to bribery in the country.
Yes, that will happen. We have been in the Maghreb area. This week we are in the state of Libya, an extremely interesting country. It was even once a kingdom. It is now no longer a kingdom. What they have is a very interesting mix. They have a chairman of a presidential council. My mother tongue is interfering with my pronunciations this morning. There's a vice chair presidential council. They even have a prime minister. Then they have a speaker. They reconfigure this political thing to suit their purposes. Okay? The proverb. He whose trousers are made of dry grass should not warm himself at the fire.
He whose trousers are made of dry grass should not warm himself
by the fire.
By the fire. Nerima, what's your interpretation of this proverb?
You know, me and these proverbs, man. I don't like them. I never like them. Man, okay. So, how I'm interpreting it, most people warm themselves by fires, but because of what you're wearing, it's also to be aware that you cannot do what everyone is doing for your own protection. So sometimes it's for you to be wary of your surroundings and you don't do things to normality because of what your currently context is key. That's how I've understood it.
Okoth.
I think mine will be, don't deliberately take yourself to danger, knowingly that, because you already know your situation. So like in our case, you know very well, for example, you are on the wrong side, then you're still taking yourself to a situation where definitely you're going to expose yourself to a certain kind of a problem. Because even me rushing here, I've faced a very interesting case of bribery this morning actually when I was coming. Yeah, because I was biking to this place. So then my driving license, so you know how they do, once you get the motorbike license, so it has to be stamped. So I have the old one, it has not been stamped, but I have a slip that I retrieved from eCitizen. So now the officer insisted that, no, you have to show me, I want to see the stamp now. And I said, it's the police station that said, you no longer do it. So I struggled, then along the way I told them, here's a post, I'm heading to Spice. And they said, nyini wana habari enda. So actually, that actually saved me, or else I would not even have made it to this show.
Yeah.
But can I mention something?
Yes.
Every time I watch this show in the morning, this is the book that I have. It's a book written, it's called Wisdom from Africa. And every time I'm just listening and going through some of the proverbs I hear you say, I'm always amazed.
So you had one. No, today's proverb, you've come across it before.
Yes, but I think in an Igbo language in Nigeria, because this one has in different African languages, then translated to English.
Very good. Very good. Okay. Context then. Bribery in Kenya. And Nerima, I know at Siasa Place you've been doing a lot of work on bribery. Recently you've been going around engaging with people on issues of bribery. Paint that picture. What's that all about?
Sure. So over the last week and a half, my team managed to travel to 5 counties. So Nairobi, Mombasa, Nakuru, Homa Bay, and Kitui, and having like focus group discussions with about 30 to 40 young people. And just asking them the question you just started this conversation with, when's the last time that you were bribed? And we're getting very, very interesting feedback, both at that interaction and also on the platforms now where these videos are shared, which is on ZKE. And what we're seeing is there's a lot of arbitrary arrests, especially amongst young people. Just walking, you can be arrested. Just being outside your house, you can be arrested. I mean, Opondo has already given us a situation which, if you didn't have that poster, he would have insisted you go to the station. Yeah, you would have gone to the station. So people are living in a different Kenya. And you're even seeing how, because people are refusing to bribe, they actually get punished. People have slept in jail for days because they refused to bribe 5K, 3K. There's even a young lady who talks about her brother being arrested and being in jail for 7 months because they couldn't come up with the amount to take him out. And now he's a drug dealer. His life just spiraled and he was arrested when he was 16. So they didn't even check to see his age. They just assumed he was an adult because he's big-bodied. So we're seeing a lot of stories around, people paying for livelihood, paying to be able to join KDF, paying to be able to get a job opportunity. But we're also seeing the other side where people are paying to see a doctor. They have to receive services. They're paying to skip the line, or they're paying to get an ID. That's the one that is worrying, because an ID opens your doors to opportunities and your livelihood. So if you can't get that ID, you're screwed.
Yeah.
And a lot of times even they have lost their IDs and someone gives the story of, I've lost it and we can't afford the 1,000 to replace it. So we're basically living under the radar. So I think, some of that information is still coming in, but I think it paints a different picture of what bribery means, especially for young people. It's a whole other dimension.
That's interesting, Okoth. So, I mean, even as we look at this, because I think that's very interesting. When we think of bribery and corruption, we think that it's usually something that you offer to get yourself out of a jam, isn't it?
Yep.
That you're in traffic, you've done something wrong, or
there's an offense involved.
There's an offense involved that you have committed, and that you're now trying to get yourself out of it. And so usually that's what comes to mind, that, okay, you're going to part with something so you don't have to go through this whole other drama of, getting arrested, going to court, whatever. But now we are looking at a whole other kettle of fish, whereby things that we would have otherwise deemed as a right.
Yes.
An ID, for example. You have a right to be identified by your own nation as a citizen. And that piece of paper, that card, is your right. Whether you're being asked to pay for it or not is another story. But to have something which is a right, you pay somebody, that money goes into somebody's pocket. To apply for a job, whereby you have the necessary skill and talent, education, whatever, but you have to pay somebody to get even considered. It's not even a guarantee that you get the job. To be treated in a hospital or a medical facility. So now it just opens up a whole other dimension of things that are actually happening. Is this worse than the former? Is this dimension worse than the former, where we said, okay, yeah, public service vehicles are bribing cops so that they don't get arrested because they're doing the thing? Is this now when you are saying that essentially we're devaluing, we're debasing the value of the citizen by asking them to pay for things that they ordinarily shouldn't? Is it worse than the other?
That's a very interesting question, because you see, even for the matatus, for example, when they pay bribes, I've been in a situation sometimes when I'm traveling from Nairobi to Nakuru, and sometimes you just count the number of times that the matatu has to slow down, then immediately the driver will pull his hand outside and drop something. Somebody asks the driver, why must you do this? He says, I'm not on the wrong, but I have to do this. I do this for me to operate on this road. Yes, most of the time, actually, in most cases, you ask this gentleman, look, you have everything. You are dressed, you are in the proper uniform, you have insurance, and why are you still doing it? He says, if I don't do it, tomorrow I'll not be on this road. Nerima has given some very interesting example, and then I'll add another one. You see, like these loans that young people also apply in the community, because this topic today is about the reality on the ground. Even something for you to get a loan to do something, like you used to have like the Wezo Youth Fund. Some of these officers were very corrupt. You are applying maybe as a group of 6 people, you're applying 100,000 shillings maybe to do a business because it is open and you can apply for it. But then you'll be told for your papers to be received, then now you have again to give another amount of money for your papers to be received. And then bribery comes to some very weird levels. You're a class rep of a university. Someone is submitting probably their assignments very late. You are demanding a hug, just a hug from a lady. And to you at that level, you still feel like this is not something. If you don't do this to me, I'm not submitting your assignment. I'm not taking your assignment at this moment. So there are these things that every day we relate with, and we never know how these things then now when upscaled, they become very dangerous things. Because when you were young, to me, I associated bribery and corruption to government. But then as you grow, you realize that every day, in one way or the other, there are some things you are doing yourself without even knowing actually that you are bribing or you're accepting a bribe.
That's when you normalize it. Because, again, most people do not think it is wrong to give, when you're stopped, to give 100, 200 shillings. It's not, if you ask them, they say, no, it isn't wrong. And part of the reason is because you're not paying for anything you've done wrong, you're paying for convenience. Because what is being sold to you is inconvenience. If you do not do this, you're going to be here for the next 3 hours. Now, somebody weighs it and says, do I really want to be here for the next 3 hours? No, I don't.
So it's a convenience. And it's like the system is then made by those who are within the system to be such an inconvenience.
Yes.
And gruesome journey.
Yes.
That then you are forced to pay.
Yes.
This moves from just being bribery to being extortion.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So they are extorting you. So we make it so difficult to come in here, by the time we process your paper, it's going to be midday. By the time we do this, it's going to be this much. You've gone to court. By the time they sort out your paperwork, the prison lorry will come. And after 5 p.m., those who haven't processed their bail and bond, we have to go to industry area. So, kama unataka nikusaidia before lorry kuje, So it becomes, and that's what Barry is saying, we moved a long time from bribery to extortion. That now what we have is extortion. Even that case that you're saying of you are submitting your assignment and somebody says, for me to accept this assignment this time, past the hour, you must give me a hug. Surely.
That falls in the category of sexual harassment.
Sexual harassment.
It's sexual harassment.
Direct. Expressly so. So there are so many other cases that we are seeing. It's not just the issue like Ndu, you're saying. It's not just asking for a bribe so that you can get off the hook because you have done something wrong and we've both established that you're on the wrong. This is because you need me.
Can I highlight I think one that is very open nowadays? You realize most young people actually nowadays even fear working on Fridays evenings or a day to holiday, because that is the time that the police officers do their job they know very when you're arrested on a Friday evening.
It's a long weekend.
Yeah, it's a long weekend. Tomorrow maybe probably you have a gig and maybe you have the only hustle that is putting food on your table. Then now you are presented with a situation. Either go sleep spend the time in the cell until Monday, or give 1,000 shillings. And I want you just to think as an ordinary citizen.
It's a lot.
What are you likely to do? Because now this person taking advantage of you, knowing very well you're not on the wrong side, but the moment you're put inside that what we call Mariamu, that big lorry, you have to do it.
Nerima, you shared some of the clips from your barazas in the 5 counties, and there are some that we've actually put it here so we can play them.
Okay.
I want to play one that caught our attention.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
So brother yangu alifukuzangwa shule akiwa form 3, akakuja home tu venye mtu like yeye ndo mpole kabisa kwa familia. So yeye alikuja tu home. Madhe akamwambia Justina, do wewe utatulia wiki moja mbili nipate do. So kuna hii siku bro yangu akakula sapa and then akasema na huku kuna joto, akatoka hapo nje ya gate. Watu wa Kiamaiko mnajua Kimbo na watu wa Huruma. Kimbo hiyo time alikuwa jirani, alikuwa anaishi Kambi Moto. Si bro yangu akatoka nje akampata hapo, akasimamisha dinga, akamwambia mambo kijana poa. Kamzana unafanyanga kazi gani? Akamwambia mimi ni wa shule, hata huku ndo home. Mama kuna mama ameweka hapo kibanda penye mama alikuwa anaishi hapo nje. Akamuuliza mama unajua huyu kijana? Huyo mama sasa mimi sijui ni nini, akasema mimi simjui. Sikimbo akashika kijana wetu, mtoto wa form 3 akampeleka stage. Mama kwa udu, kila mtu kwa udu. Tukaitishwa dau 5, ameandikwa preparation. Tukakosa. Ilikuwa ngona Tuesday. So Wednesday asubuhi akapelekwa kutini. Bro yangu akaenda ameandikiwa preparation, kuna visu. So hadi huyu mtoi anashindwa nini na happen. And then hawajaangalia hadi age, ako 16. But ni mrefu. Sinaona tu kuna design mavijana wana grow. Anakaa hadi mkubwa kuniliko. Mimi hadi nasimama na explain ni bro yangu mdogo. Naulizwa kwa nini mkubwa kukuliko. So sasa bro yangu ikakuwa hii kesi hatuna anything, huko akaitishwa 15k. So tulikosa dao 5, saa 15k akapelekwa Inda. Bro yangu alikaa Inda akakaa for 7 months na hivyo ndo ali drop out of school. Saa hii alitokanga. Tulikaa tukachanga, tukamtoa, then after 1 month tukaendea si lazima mrudie nini cash bail. Wakatunyima sijui kakuwa like hizo story mob. So after bro yangu kutoka, so like nikigo back to mental health wise, bro yangu hakuangi poa hata ukimwangalia saa hii. Akakuja akaingilia drugs. like ukigo back ukimwongelesha anakuuliza saa mimi sijamaliza shule, hii nyumba yote mmemaliza shule, mmeenda college. So unaona huyo mtoi anakuanga like na trauma, anashinanga amedoze, ukimtafutia kazi haiwezi fanya juu anakuuliza masani kitoka job nipatane na huyo sansi. So
it happened, nikakutana na mkubwa fulani kwa hiyo department ya KDF hiyo time ya recruitment, akanipea barua confirmed, hadi saa hii niko na hiyo barua confirmed. So ilikuwa like nifike tu field nionekane, na akaniambia inahitaji 300,000 but nikishapeana 100 hizo zingine zitakatwa nikishaingia kazi, you see. Na nilitoa nilipeana 100,000 nikapata hiyo barua, then hata sijui what happened. Job sikupata, nikapata barua, ikabidi niende mpaka huko kwa hiyo nini yao headquarters, but nikaambiwa sasa next nitauawa. Nikarudi home nikaachana nayo.
Nerima, Wako-Ojiwa, when you went to the various counties, these are different accounts from the different people on their interaction with bribery.
Yes.
That first one that we played just before we went into the break, where the lady is talking about her brother, and her brother, 17-year-old, is just picked up, goes, trumped up charges, ends up in custody, comes out, drops out of school, goes into drugs, has mental health issues. I mean, that's just a painful, very, very painful thing for even this girl just to recount. What happened to your brother is just because you were poor.
And you could even hear in her voice she was choking up. And you can see the effect that it has on the entire family. And imagine the neighbor who didn't recognize or refused to recognize that child and say that she doesn't know who this person is. And I'm sure they replay that moment wondering, what if the neighbor said that they know this boy? What if he didn't walk out of the house because it was too hot that minute? His life would be different. But even today on the front cover of the Daily Nation, the headliner is "Our Turn to Eat." And so it shows you what these stories are showing us, that when they eat up there, and which is the work Opondo does in terms of showing how counties are losing resource. When they eat up there, the trickle-down effect and what it means, especially to the ordinary citizen, they can't live their lives. People are struggling just to have access to their basic rights, access to opportunities, even their own livelihoods. And this is the demographic that is the largest in this country. And so when you begin to pay to have access, we are taking a turn that unfortunately only leads toward conflict. Because what we're saying is the poor, their lives, the underprivileged, it doesn't matter. They're not going to be able to afford this. It's going to get to a point where they cannot afford this. And you can hear her choking up where they were left with 5K to be able to get him out, and they couldn't come up with it. And now, because of that 5K, this boy's life has turned for the worst. And so there are so many stories like that, which unfortunately I don't think our leadership recognizes how it is creating such a ripple effect in their society, in the economy, because you cannot build a nation when the nation is sick.
This is true. So essentially, we're looking at a situation that continues to fester, and and we cannot look at these issues in isolation, because you cannot say, okay, well, it's a sister and their 17-year-old brother, they're trying to figure that out. Okay, it's one. No, it's not. It's many, many, many cases. This young man who's being asked for, I mean, I was
100,000 shillings.
300,000 shillings. I'm in shock. For a job that doesn't pay you a tenth of that. Do you get?
Yeah.
The job does not even pay you a tenth of that amount that you're bribing to be able to get in. So what does that do? It shows us a picture of the hopelessness that already is existent, that people are trying to then find a leg up out of. And what is happening is that they're becoming a lot more frustrated. So how compacted or how compounded are these issues, Opondo? Because we are saying that we are getting to a place where society is going to be so devalued. People are going to be so devalued, so debased, that you have to look for money that you don't have to just be.
I think For me, reality sometimes hit me hard, and especially in Nerima 2019, I contested in Kibra by-election, the youngest candidate in that race, and it gave me an opportunity to see the life.
You wanted to be president?
No, to be MP of Kibra when Ken Okoth died. Yeah, when we lost our era MP. So I just realized that even sometimes, for you to be given a microphone in a pulpit in a church, you have to pay some money.
What are you talking about?
Yes, I'm saying the truth.
To who? Who are you paying?
To the
pastor.
because that is their crowd, and you have to pay to be given an opportunity to speak in the church. For you, sometimes even just to access some community meetings, you have to pay to bribe some of the owners of these NGOs for them just to access a certain crowd. Now, even the worst part, and also where we have also to call a spade, you see even the media itself. I've been in cases where people come on the ground, you're doing your rallies and everything, then somebody tells you now, do you want your party to feature? Now you have to do this. Yeah? For you to, and already it looks like it is like a way of life now, because even to some of the things that you would have expected that it's just normal, things just keep on being done the same way.
Listen to this one. Michael Ambende is posting a comment on YouTube and says, I was told of a story where parents are tipping teachers for them to get their children extra attention during class time.
Yes,
that's true. I know someone
What do you
who's
mean?
doing that.
It's
Yes,
true. Yeah.
that's true.
It's true.
Yes.
What do you mean?
Extra attention.
Yes.
Explain.
If
Please go.
Go ahead.
just a little bit, then maybe now she can. It's just so especially if you're in a school where there are very many students per class, right?
Yeah.
And you see that maybe your child is not doing well, and then you say, okay, now how can then maybe the child will complain to you and say, okay, if I ask a question, teacher doesn't answer or doesn't pay attention. You will be told, and if you escalate this issue, you will be told, well, you need to get into the culture of how this is done. Okay? You want maybe the teacher to pay attention to your child.
You want your teacher to notice your child.
To notice your child. And this is the words that were said to me. You want the teacher to notice your child, or you want the teacher to pay a little bit attention to your child, at least even look on the register and know that your child is called Bob. You can buy tea for 1,000 shillings.
What?
You can buy tea for 500 bob. You can buy tea for 5,000 shillings. And in the next term, you will see that even when you visit class or when you visit school, the teacher will greet you very well. Subject teachers will greet you very well. And you'll find that your son or daughter is not complaining anymore.
What?
In this Kenya today. That one I know.
Yeah. My friend's son is doing very well in school. And she pays 3,000 extra to the teacher. And he sits at the front row. He's in class earlier. He gets special tuition and tuition. He leaves later. And he's also exposed to other programs like scholarships or these missionary schools that come. Yeah. They put him on the list first. That's my friend's
for an extra
son.
3,000, unofficial 3,000.
Yes.
This
And
is not paid to the school admin. No.
And the teacher calls. He's in boarding school. The teacher calls every week to update. This is how he's doing. This is the lesson he's struggling in. This is what we need to focus on. A personal brief every week.
Maybe mine is a different experience now, not about school, but just also how still officers work with the community members. So there's a case of a criminal that needs to be arrested and has already been maybe made public. But for the police to come to arrest this person, again, you have to go and bribe them to come and do. Even after you saying that we know where this person is, this is the person maybe who defiled the child, or this is the person who did this. Again, you have to bribe this person to come. And on the issue of the schools, how many times we've heard of cases where a child, for example, you are called to school A, but the parent wants you to go to school B or school C. The parent will find every way to make sure that it happens, even bribing the administration. Then the child knows, what are we teaching? That with the money, you can always buy your way all through. You buy admission, even if the other school that you got was a nice one, buy admission. You bought a scholarship, and you did not deserve to get that scholarship. You bought grades, and you keep on buying. What happens later on in your own life, even when you become a leader?
So, what are we looking at here? Essentially, things that folks are being paid to do anyway. That is their job. If we want to look at teachers, they're supposed to teach across board. If we look at the police service, it's supposed to guarantee security and supposed to guarantee that criminality is reduced, if not expunged completely. So we're saying that what is happening is that things that you're supposed to do anyway, and that you're being compensated to do, is that you're now being asked for favors for those things to be done. So then also, again, we're looking at a devaluing of society. But then one that really then does tug at me is what we hear, that to receive medical care, please explain this to me, that to receive medical care, there's also a bribe that's being given to whom? The hospital, the doctor, and you're still going to pay? I don't understand why. How is this working?
Even to the reception, because maybe you are on a queue, uko kama number 7 uko, and you feel like your case is very urgent. Utalipana na uvukisho, utasikia tu mtu ametoka the other side anasema nani Peter, enda uone nani uko mbele.
Who is this person who is receiving this money to move you up in the line?
The receptionist, let's say if it's like a small, we are talking of these small community clinics.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the person that you first of all find, maybe it's the cash office, or right? Hey.
It's everywhere.
So it's basically, CT, that's what you were saying earlier. We have normalized this thing.
You see, when you normalize it, one is sometimes even greeted with a frown. That is no longer the case. It's just normal. Let me ask you, those of you who go to churches, how often do you hear the people who are there preaching, talking loudly, strongly against even such matters and pinpointing? When you look at the configuration of certain religious institutions, the people who are either in the board, the people who are the elders, do they represent the sort of people whose value system you would consider to be above board? Or are they the people who are known to contribute huge amounts to the church? This particular basket here is actually fairly rotten. It's not one of those things that... Now the problem is, when you look at the consequences of all this, those who are already disadvantaged and whom the government should be looking after, it's now not a question of them being disadvantaged or being desperate, despondent. They get to a point where nothing in their lives actually move. Nothing. Meaning, you wake up to hopelessness every single day. And then you ask and you wonder why crime is on the increase. All these things that you see, you wonder why.
I mean, I'm almost afraid to ask Nerima and Opondo, these institutions, because all of these things are happening under a representative institution, whether you want to look at the police, whether you want to look at education, health, etc., are those in positions of authority?
Aware.
Just ask.
Okay.
Do they know?
Do they know that these things are going
they
on?
don't.
It's possible they don't know. And if they do know, are they doing anything? You see why I said I'm afraid to ask. Are they doing anything about it? Are they aware that these things are going on? Because like you said, if it's happening here, then it either is sanctioned unconsciously or consciously from a higher place. Do they know that this, because it's bad? What we're talking about today is bad.
Yeah, what we're talking about is bad, and what we're hoping is people to continue to share their experiences on the ZKE channel, because we are receiving so much that I feel that there are some people who don't realize how bad it is. And it's a cross-board, different parts of this country. It's not a urbanized city thing where we have a lot of slum development, etc. So I think maybe they don't realize just how dire the situation is, because what happens when people run out of money, they begin to use their bodies, especially women. So we have the cases of sex for pads, especially with teenagers.
Sex for transport.
Sex for transport. So that's what now it will evolve to if it's not taken care of or managed at the highest of levels. But do they care? I do not think they care. I think they're very focused on their political positioning, power, and accumulating their own resource and wealth. I don't think they see the country is actually disintegrating in front of their eyes.
Two things are likely to happen here. You see, when I look at the Gen Z protest, that was the Gen Z raising the bar and saying, we're not putting up with this nonsense. Okay? Now, all these ancient crocodiles like myself are going to die at some point, and probably not too long from now. these young people will get older than be in power. What I find fascinating is how someone doesn't realize that they will have to exit the stage at some point. It doesn't really matter what they do, they will have to exit. What will they be exiting to? You see, they're building it now and they don't seem to see it. A country that is organized, stable, those who are disadvantaged and unprivileged get to be taken care of. Those who are elderly are taken care of. Those who are infirm. All these things, when you set them in place, when you retire, you will be in that position yourself. As for the wealth that people believe they have accumulated, wealth dissipates. That thing can vanish because most of the people who are wealthy in this country, unfortunately, happen to be the political class. They purport to be businessmen, but they are not businessmen. To understand it, just look at people who, in an earlier regime or earlier times, appear to have a lot of money and were politicians. Some are poor to the point where you actually can't believe that this person once upon a time had money. The point is this. We are burying our heads in the sand and looking to people who are actually not going to provide a solution. The political class in this country will not provide solutions. They will not. The only way they will do so is if those who elected them make it clear to them that they expect this, and if they don't, then they have to exit early. That's all. Because in the absence of that element of accountability, they will continuously run roughshod over us in everything they do. It's not even complicated. Now, so why should we, who are the vast majority, sit back and let people sit on our heads and all we do is complain? I mean, it's utter nonsense. This isn't even a call for violence or revolution. It's just telling someone, we're not going to do this. It's not complicated. We're not threatening you. We're just saying, if you don't do this, we're going to get rid of you.
Yeah.
You will leave because we elected you to do this for us. It's not complicated. Accountability is something that must be part and parcel because this path we've taken, it's not a good one at all.
And what's so good about this conversation, even starting with the bribery issue, is that it's highlighting, these are the pain points that Kenyans have, right? That young girl and her family, whose brother has now become a drug addict, is mentally unwell because of the experience that he went through. The kind of people that, Opondo, you're telling us, who have gone to apply for a fund, youth fund, Wezo fund, and they're asked, first of all, part with a bribe to access a loan that they're going to repay. And so they end up not then taking the bribe, so they don't end up improving their life. Those are their pain points. Those are the issues. When they wake up in the morning, that's what they're thinking about.
Yes.
They're not thinking about Rigathi Gachagua, whether he's going home or not.
Exactly. And actually, when City was talking, something came to my mind very fast. So I do a lot of videos on TikTok. And one of the videos that I did recently, and was just calling out, and I was saying, and I said it openly, politicians are not immortals. They will die at some point. The president will die at some point, the governors, everyone at some point. The question we should always ask ourselves, when we die, which kind of a nation would we like to leave behind? And then if we are asking ourselves that question, then is what are we doing towards making that a possibility? Because again, so many Kenyans are finding themselves in tough situations because of poverty, because of the way the system has already been designed to make certain things happen. So you ask yourself, like, this looks like the normal way of life, but is that really how it's supposed to be?
There's the assumption that the people you are referring to actually care and that they're bothered about this. They're not. When Du first started saying this a year or so ago, he says, what makes you think these people actually care about you? I just say, maybe they don't. They honestly don't. They honestly do not. Because if they did, the things we keep reading about and hearing about,
we'd stop seeing.
We would see something and hear something different. You're being told of 27 years in which you're going to pay a debt. This is this expressway. You're being told there is 30 years if the airport deal goes through, you will pay. And you're being told, actually, no, you will not pay. It is a PPP. Really. This expressway is not free. You're paying. Okay? When you go to the airport, you will pay. You will pay. So when you're told you're not going to pay, let me take the view that the two of you are, say, in your 30s. Okay? 30 years from now, you'll be my age, because I'm in my 60s. I, 30 years from now, will be dead. Okay? Now, a child who is being born today will be 30 years old.
True.
All right? A child who is 10 years old will be 40 years old.
Yes.
They'll be paying for something they don't even understand.
Yeah.
You do not understand the big benefit that this will bring about. In 30 years' time, we'll need another airport. This one will be outdated. So what are we going to do? Acquire another loan so that now the 30-year-old has to get to 60 before something else happens. Anything that is supposed to benefit you is something you will see. If you're told it benefits you and you don't see it, then please understand it's not going to benefit you. And the person who's telling you it will benefit you is lying to you. It's not true. And it's not one person. It's a concert and it's a choir. And they've all learned how to sing the same song.
And we've all learned to get used to it.
Yes.
There was one disturbing video among the videos that you shared of the... let me just play this video, right? Let me just play it. Just listen to it. It's about 2 minutes long. Just go through the story.
Spice FM. Nyeri.
Like a couple of months ago, beshte yangu alibiwa do, like there's a transaction ilimekiwa from her phone. So tuka decide twende tufuatilie, tukaenda kwa this customer care services, wakakata kutupatia hiyo info, wakasema hiyo ni police case. Tukaenda polisi. Kwenda polisi tukaambiwa twende side ya CID cause sasa hiyo ni kitu inafaa mambo ya tracking and all that. Wacha tufike huko. Venye language huko atatukua tunaielewa. Au makarao alikuwa anaongea ni kama kawa nalipwa wenyewe wao ulipwa. Sasa wakatuliza tuko na ngapi? Tukawaambia hatuna do cause ni story ya do tunafuatilia. Haya, wakasema kama una do, kama tuko ready kuvua. Alafu saa kitu ilikuwa fani, huyu mwenye ameibiwa sio yeye anaitishwa kasusu. Mimi ndo nilikuwa naitishwa kasusu. Huwa inamaanisha sex. Sasa nashindwa mimi siwezi lipa na kasusu yangu na hata do zenye tunafuatilia sio zangu. Kwanza hiyo ndio ilikuwa the weird part. I wish hizo do zingekuwa zangu. At least maybe.
Imagine.
See.
Imagine.
And that's the police.
Actually,
and now you see, as she's telling this story, it becomes like it's a hilarious story. Like, this is how we have just become, well, gotten used to it.
Let me tell you something about these situations. The perpetrator also becomes a victim. They may not see it. All these they are human beings, citizens of this country. They're just like you and I in the sense that they have relatives, they have sisters, they have children, like us. But somehow, when you have that uniform or you're in that office, you become a completely different being. I am certain that members of their family do not know that they are this sort of people. I am certain that when they go home with certain money and they're doing things, nobody asks, perhaps because they figure it out. But why is it then that there is this huge attempt we have, and we're talking about it today, where anybody who seems to be saying something that is truthful is under threat? Why? Because they know what is true, they know what is honest, they also know what is right, and they also know what is wrong. Now that wrong is a bit of a bother when you keep mentioning it.
It becomes a bit too much.
Yes.
And Nerima, you're asking people to share their stories.
Yes, we're asking people to share their stories. We would like to do a study, but also to statistically share just how bad things are and to emphasize on the institutions to do better.
Indeed.
And in the book by, Michelle Wong, It's Our Turn to Eat, there was a time when Kibaki had tried with corruption. But failed. With this particular administration, there is no effort. Absolutely none. And what we are showing is the trickle effect that it's bringing and how now it's so ingrained, it's in the grassroots, in rural areas, it's even affecting our grandparents, children, babies, elders, and there's just no way around it unless we have the political goodwill. Not because it's a good thing to do, but it's because it's for the survival of the people. Because what we're seeing now, if people don't have access to health, people have actually died after this shift. And we cannot continue to live like this is normal. It's not. It is not normal.
Agola is asking, I share my story, then what?
then we hope to be able to take these issues further. The work that we're doing with accountability, which also Opondo is doing in his platform on TikTok as well, it's putting pressure. People have to put pressure.
If you hide it, you don't help.
You see, Nerima, in fact, if I may help you with just a perspective, when you speak about it, it is out in the open. We can no longer pretend it's not there.
I asked a very important question on TikTok, and I said, Kenyans, as we keep on blaming these leaders, where do they come from? Who put them into these positions of power? Over 1,000 comments on TikTok. More than half were saying, guys, let us stop blaming the leaders. We are the problem. We elect these people. Some of these people are a perfect representation of who we are. Those were the kind of response that I was getting. And I think now it is time to face the bull by the horn. So, number one, when we share these stories, as the person asking, the more we share these stories and make many people angry, then people realize that this is not the way of life.
They either talk about it or
yes. This is not the way of life. When it works to your favor, call it connection. When it works against you, call it corruption. No, this is not the way of life. Things have to be done in a certain way.
So I got the number that you wanted us to share, which is on WhatsApp, 0701 244 896. That's 0701 244 896. You can save that number. It's the campaign is ZKE. Start chatting with it on WhatsApp and share your story. It'll be a chatbot that engages with you, where you can then share your story, and then from there also, once the campaign is ongoing, you'll get the results. You get to hear what other people say their experiences are. Right?
Yes.
Nerima, thank you very much for joining us as well.
Thank you.
Okoth Opondo, first time here. It's been a long time coming. Karibu.
Latiff, can I just say something maybe before we conclude?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Because we started with a proverb, allow me also end with a certain proverb, but now from Tanzania. It says, sisimizi hawaumani. A black ant does not bite another black ant. Every time I do videos on TikTok and people are asking, why are you concerned about the resources of Mandera? Why are you talking about Wajir? Why are you talking about Kisumu? Why are you talking about Nakuru? The thing is that Wajir is Kenya, Kisumu is Kenya, and we are concerned about everything. This is one thing I would like to remind all Kenyans. Let us stop defending politicians and the leaders who are not working for us. When we attack anyone, by this I don't really mean violent. When we are calling things out, let us just call it out. Corruption is corruption, tribalism is tribalism, and let us never favor anyone, because we are members of the same group now. We are all the Sisimizi, and we know that our struggle is not struggle against anyone to be specific. In fact, I tell people all the time, our issue is not even the president or the governor. Our issues are, we are fighting ignorance, we are fighting poverty, we are fighting corruption. Let us look at how to fight these issues and not to fight individuals, because if we do not really change the system...
Let's end it there.
Exactly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okoth Opondo is a civic educator, and Nerima Wako-Ojiwa is the executive director of Siasa Place.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.